Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podserve, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. The new book by Paul Katona is an account exploring prison life from the perspective of those working in correctional facilities. The name of the book is The Broken System, and the author Paul is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Paul, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Paul, can you tell me all about The Broken System and what you've written about here?
The Broken System is a personal account of the prison environment I was a part of for 14 years. It made a deep impression on me what I have experienced behind the wall, so to speak. It varies from humorous to dramatic to tragic, as life itself is. But in that prison environment, all these things are magnified. So I was a witness to that.
Paul, what sorts of readers were you aiming for here?
I would say the socially conscious citizen, first of all, and secondary for the audience who are interested in the inner life of correctional institutions, because it's so little known what's going on, what's the dynamics of it, because the movies and the book came out on the subject, they mostly cover the violence. But there is a lot more to it than just violence. I venture to say that it is first and foremost is psychological. It's a psychological warfare and condition, what's happening between custody staff and the inmate population, and management, of course.
Paul, what was that spark, that inspiration that made you say, hey, I got to write this book?
I'll be honest with you, what touched me, the reason behind it, that the personal journeys I have witnessed on the part of the employees did touch me deeply, because I realized that these people are victims and heroes at the same time. And that duality captured me, and I tried to get to the end of it to see what it is really. And I came to the conclusion that it's both. It actually touched me personally, on a personal level, to witness these human destinies within the walls.
So have you ever done anything like this before, or is this all kind of a new thing for you?
Not quite. I published a book of poetry in 2012, I believe, or 2010. In that book, there are 2 poems, actually 3, which were inspired by what have I witnessed in prison. And I actually included 2 of those poems in the book.
So once you started writing this, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Yes, it was a long journey. I've been advised against it because the Department of Corrections can be a cruel machine. So they told me, don't be a whistleblower. And my response was, I am not a whistleblower. I just write down what my input is. And the purpose of the book is not to make the department appear in a negative light. It is sticking to the facts, to what did actually take place, what stories expired. So if the book has a whistleblower effect, that's a byproduct.
And so once you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs, what would you say was the most difficult part about that publishing end of things?
I would say the editing was crucial, because we had to make sure that grammatically and structurally the whole thing is sound and complete and have integrity.
And now that it's out there, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Well, I haven't had that much feedback. I get approached time to time with different distributors and publishing houses. But what I find that it's a very treacherous market, because I think there's a whole quote unquote mafia out there who is capitalizing on newcomers on the book market. And what was the most challenging to withstand this onslaught of fake offers or proposals?
The name of Paul's book is The Broken System. It's written by Paul Katona and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Paul, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's been really great talking with you.
I totally thank you for your time and thanks for the opportunity. And I hope that helps newcomer writers a little bit.
I'm looking at the new book by Kristina Szarenski, and it's titled That Can't Be. And it's a charming story of a bear who is shocked to discover purple bumblebees that make purple honey. Kristina is right here with me now at the show, and we're going to talk all about it. Kristina, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Corey.
Kristina, can you tell me all about That Can't Be?
Absolutely. So That Can't Be is a children's book, of course. So when we're talking about purple bumblebees, we're using our imagination. So the book is really focused on two bears that love each other, whether they're a mama or a papa bear. It doesn't really matter because you can use your imagination for that. And they're little cubs that live in a tree. And that tree just so happens to have a beehive hanging from it. And that's the home of what happens to be purple bumblebees, which is really kind of hard to believe, which is where the title comes from, because that can't be. That doesn't make sense. But since they really enjoy the tea that comes from using the honey from those purple bumblebees, it also happens to be purple, they decide that it's okay, and they'll stick with living in that tree with that purple bumblebee.
So this is really creative, Kristina. Where did this idea come from?
Well, basically, I like to rhyme things. And when my daughter was small, I would make up little stories for her, whether it was about purple bees or trees in the backyard or, fishes in the sea. I would come up with little rhymes that I would sing song to her. Of course, she had her favorites that I would go over and over again. And as she got older, she said, hey, you really should try publishing these. So that's been percolating for many years. And I had an opportunity. I had been talking with my son's now wife. She is an amazing artist. And we were chatting. I said, what do you think about doing the illustrations for this? And she said, well, absolutely. So we sat down. I actually wrote down, because it was always in my head. I had never actually taken the time to write it down. So we put it, I put it down on paper, and we started sketching out, what would this tree look like and how would these bees come together, and making sure, do they look fuzzy enough? And so we put together and took our imaginations and really brought the whole story to life, which was just a phenomenal experience to go through that and see the ink coming alive and seeing how this is really going to come out. So it was a long process. Over time, we both, she was in school and now works full time, and I do as well. So it took some time to do it, but it was an amazing adventure for us to go through and take my expression and really see it come through illustration. So it was just an amazing progress and process.
So what does your writing background look like, Kristina? Is this your first time doing this kind of thing?
It is. Although I'm a full-time project manager, program manager, so I write full-time, but just not books. So I've been published in publications from a professional standpoint, but this is my first time really going out and taking that creative side and putting it on paper and really putting that extension of myself out for the public to look at. So it's been a big stretch for me to take that next step and really put that happy path piece out for the public to look at and see who the other side of me, the creative side, not so much the business part of me, looks like.
Now the book's out there, you're finally a published author. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
It's being that, that I am technically a published author. That's something I've had on my to-do list or my bucket list for years and years since I was young. I really wanted to do that, and I never really had the courage to take that step. And now that I'm significantly older, I've taken that chance, and it's so exciting for me to have checked that off now, and I really want to see how far I can take this.
Well, it sounds like young readers are really going to love this book. Again, it's titled That Can't Be. It's written by Kristina Szarenski and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to pick this up. Kristina, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been great talking with you today.
Thank you very much for having me, Corey.
I'm looking at a book that explores supporting the emotional well-being of students. It's written by Dr. Jason Black-Streeter, and it's titled Heart Condition: Teaching the Child versus Teaching the Curriculum, a Framework for Holistic Instruction. Jason is here with me right now at the show. We get to talk all about the book. Jason, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jason, can you tell me all about Heart Condition and what readers are going to find here?
Simply put, Heart Condition, Teaching the Child versus Teaching the Curriculum, it's a call to action. It's a charge to all stakeholders of education to ensure that along with teaching the 1, 2, 3s and the ABCs, that we always remember to connect with each one of them, those, and these, that we keep at the center of our hearts and the epicenter of our brains the humanity of education.
Would you say you wrote this mainly for teachers?
I wouldn't say mainly for teachers, no. I would say that it's something that can be appreciated by anyone who has ever gone to school, whether they had a great educational experience or a bad one or somewhere in between. I would say that it's a must for all teachers, administrators, and governing officers in education.
So what was that spark? What made you say, hey, I got to sit down, write this book?
Man, it's a culmination of many different things. I remember a quote. It read, "A man's opinion is only as good as his knowledge is on that subject." So with that thought in mind, I knew that my opinion on best practices in education would hold some value. I'm a mandated reporter, so to not write this book from my perspective would be negligence because young lives are at stake.
What does your writing background look like, Jason? Have you done things like this before?
No, this is my first publication.
So being your first one, did you find this to be a long journey overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
You know what? This publication was something that has been percolating over the years. It's been something that year 27 education for me, there's so many things that I've noticed that could really impact the lives of others. And so my book was I really took into account my personal aspects. So my vantage point as a student, as a teacher, and as an administrator.
So you had your manuscript ready and you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs. What did you find to be the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
The most challenging part, I think, would be resisting the urge to meet a deadline. I had in my brain when I wanted to have it finished, and just resisting that urge, not focusing on the quantity of time, but making my focus quality.
And then once it was finally a real thing and you're holding Heart Condition in your hands for the first time, Jason, what was that moment like for you?
The first time I held this book in my hands was sort of like, I remember the best way to describe it is when I first held my daughters in my hands the first time. Only this time I was the one who conceived and delivered something that took years developing. I will always remember the first time I laid eyes on my girls. In the same way, I will always hold in my heart the first time I lay eyes on my books. It's something I will never forget.
So now it's finally out there, you're published. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
I think a couple of things are most rewarding. First off, my nephew, Frederick, who I raised since he was 6, created the cover illustration for my book. So each time I see my book, I see the cover first, obviously. And knowing that I helped develop the person who developed the cover for my book is really cool. Each time I look at my book, I see little Freddie. That, along with the opportunity to help others and advance the field of education, is something that I consider priceless.
So looking ahead, do you see yourself publishing, writing more?
Yes, I'm currently working on part 2. Well, I won't say it's part 2. Heart Condition, Daily Inspiration for Prosperous Living is something that I'm currently working on right now.
Well, we have a lot of listeners who are authors just starting out as well. Jason, do you have maybe some advice that you could toss out there for them?
My dad used to tell me, if you are in a rush, then don't barbecue because good barbecue takes time. Now, certainly writers should set aside time throughout the week to write, but when meeting a deadline becomes the focus, I think the quality of the work suffers. Just like barbecue cooked too fast, things might appear done on the outside, but the inside is not done. And although some prefer the taste of rare meat, I would advise aspiring authors to only cook up work that is well done. Don't rush.
What a wonderful book. Again, this is titled Heart Condition, Teaching the Child versus Teaching the Curriculum, a framework for holistic instruction. This is written by Dr. Jason Blackstreeter, and it's published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, or right down the street at your local bookshop. Jason, it's been so wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks a bunch. Have a great one, okay?
I'm really delighted to have author Rabbi Greg Crawford with me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Greg, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Greg, you have a new book out titled Thoughts from an Unhobbled Mind. Can you tell me all about it?
I can't tell you much about it. It's just a compilation, first set of compilation of random thoughts I've been putting down on paper for the last 4 or 5 years. I've got numerous of them, enough to fill 4 books. But it's just an hour a day that I spend with myself and with the Bible and with our Creator, and just comes up with a story every day.
Greg, what sorts of readers do you think this would really connect with the most?
You know, I've been asked that a lot, and I'm not sure. I'm from West Texas, and I kind of write like I speak, and the people that have been reading it are horsemen, cowmen, agricultural background, but they all can relate pretty easy. But recently I've had some readers from East Coast and Left Coast really act like they appreciate the musings. So I don't know who I wasn't targeting anyone individually. It's just, like I say, it was just my thoughts originally, and I got so many that I've got notebooks everywhere, and I was encouraged by my wife to publish this first one to see what it was going to do, and kind of excited about the direction that it's taken.
So what was that spark, that inspiration that made you say, hey, I'm going to sit down and write this?
You know, each of us are given 24 hours of a day. I've been taught all my life that we have a portion to the service of our fellow man and our Creator. We have a portion for our usual vocations, a portion for refreshment and sleep. And of those 24 hours, I wanted one of them for myself. I didn't want to share it with anyone. So I get up early every morning, I make me a pot of coffee, and I sit there and write. Just meditate on God's Word and recent events or whatever the case may be. You never know what's going to come out of my mind every morning.
So is this your first published work, or were you published prior to this?
Well, I published a book called The Gift of Grace many years ago. It cost me an arm and a leg, and I didn't have a whole lot of response with it. It was 7 short stories about fictitious characters of the New Testament, and locally it ran really well, but I didn't know how to market it. I didn't know how to, and I still don't know how to market anything. It's just kind of flopped, and I've been encouraged to revisit it, update it, edit it, and try it again on a different platform.
So once you started off on this, was this a long journey overall, the writing, publishing, the whole thing?
Well, you know, I don't know whether it's a journey or not. It was just, I started in 1996, 1997, and come to this point where I've got more paper than I know what to do with and don't want to throw it away. So we'll see if it encourages someone else or inspires somebody else. And that's what I really would like to see, is it inspire other people to see what they really believe, meditate on what they really believe. And if they don't believe it, then maybe they ought to change.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, what would you say was the most challenging part about the whole publishing process for you?
There wasn't really anything challenging. They went through an editing process and the publishing process, and to this point where you're interviewing. I'm really just taken by surprise by the attention that this manuscript has gotten. So I didn't have any obstacles whatsoever to get this accomplished. It was pretty quick, pretty easy, and right now it's been rewarding.
So what are the chances we'll see more from you here down the road?
Well, it depends on how well this runs. Like I say, I've got 4 more books I'm editing right now that I've compiled in the same format, same essay type material.
This book is titled Thoughts from an Unhobbled Mind. It's written by Rabbi Greg Crawford and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, or traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Greg, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great talking with you today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
The new book by the Sisters Spurlock is titled The Faceless Ghost, and this is a sequel that blends small-town secrets, mystery, and suspense. And I'm talking with the sisters, Stacy and Diane, right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Can you tell me all about The Faceless Ghost and what readers are in store for here?
Well, first, as you said, Corey, it is the sequel to The Ghost Comes Out. The Ghost Comes Out was written in 2020, which was our first novel. The Faceless Ghost takes place where the Ghost Comes Out leaves off, which is in 2015. In a small town in West Tennessee, Grayton is the name of the fictional town. It begins, like I said, where the Ghost Comes Out ends. It's a whodunit, a mystery, where crime and justice kind of meet. And there is an ending which you probably won't guess. So we hope that the readers will feel the same way when they read it.
So when you think about the readers that you were looking for, would you say it's that mystery and crime kind of genre?
Yeah, I would. I'd also say it's anybody who likes a good mystery filled, again, with suspense. But this particular book, we have murders. We have a court trial that Matlock couldn't even solve, and lots of family secrets, because this is a small town, and in that small town, everybody thinks they know everybody, but inside the homes, you're going to find out there are a whole lot of secrets that everybody doesn't know. And so that just keeps the readers engaged from the moment they open the book to the very end. And I just want to say that we challenge your listeners to play detective as they read the book. So far, no one has been able to figure out who the ghost is from The Ghost Comes Out or from The Faceless Ghost, because, again, as Stace said, it's an ending you won't guess.
We hope we've intrigued you, Corey.
Yeah, have we intrigued you?
Absolutely. I'm wondering how this idea came about.
You know, that's something that I really don't know. When Di and I are authors, and we have actually authored children's books. We've written many children's stories, and 5 are in print. And we just got to the point where we were like, we'd like to do something else, and we would like our audience to be older. So we were thinking late teenage, adult to adult. And we just sat down one day and started writing, and it just developed. We really didn't know where it was going, but we were very happy where it went. And the readers have been very, very supportive and have given us great ratings on both books. So maybe we have done something right.
When it comes to the sequel, was this a shorter process than the first one, would you say?
Oh, no. This was a 5-year on love affair. Took 5 years. Life got in the way, as it does. But we were very pleased when we finally were able to bring it to fruition. And like I said, our readers have been very, very,
they've been patient.
Yeah, so you get your manuscript ready, you start working with your publisher, Christian Faith. What do you find to be the most challenging part about that whole publishing end of things?
That's a really good question. I think the fact that after it's written and the manuscript goes to the publisher, it's like, okay, how soon, how soon can we get that baby in our hands? I think that's been the biggest challenge. Like we would talk to our representative with Christian Faith, and she was a great person, Michaela, and she would kind of guide us. Okay, it's coming, and we're in the editing stage, or we're in this stage, or we're in that stage, and we were like, oh, please let it happen. as it actually comes to an actual final book that you can hold in your hands. That's I think.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, again, this book is titled The Faceless Ghost. It's written by the Sisters Spurlock. It's published by Christian Faith Publishing. So head on over to places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or traditional brick-and-mortar stores. You're going to be able to pick this up. Stacy, Diane, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having us.
We so appreciate it. Come to Nashville sometime.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
Author Eric Welborne has written a new book titled Shorts and Teas, and it's a creative and heartfelt collection of short fiction exploring life, culture, and redemption. Eric is sitting right here with me now at the show, and we get to talk all about it. Eric, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Eric, can you tell me all about Shorts and Teas and what you've written about here?
Absolutely. It's a collection of 10 Christian short stories, or nicknamed Shorts, hence the part of the title for the book. All 10 stories are ones that I wrote over the years. It's unique. It's actually almost an entirely pioneering genre in the Christian circuit, but it also has to relate to family and relationships, looking at realistic but quirky characters that don't have life all figured out, but it deals with a lot of hope, humor, and redemption.
Eric, what kinds of readers were you thinking about when you wrote it?
Probably young adults, really anyone over 18 that has had some time to grow up with family, develop some hurts and scars, and really allow the reader to dive into relatable conflict and resolution.
So what was that inspiration that made you say, hey, I've got to write this book?
The inspiration for Shorts and Teas concerning the title was developed in 95 to 96 when I spent a year in Senegal, West Africa, as a missionary. The culture takes an hour and a half of time out during the day to relax and rewind. And this family in the north developed their own version of having sweet tea instead of hot, strong tea. And they would serve it every day in the backyard. And it was so the idea of having 10 or so stories that you just relax with over an afternoon, and you can take one at a time. That's really the idea that where Shorts and Teas as the title came together. However, the fever for writing started in 93, back when I was at Winthrop University with an American short fiction class. Really, really enjoyed it, and things took off from there.
So it sounds like you have a long writing background. Is this the first time you've actually been published?
As a book, yes. I've submitted 4 or 5 poems to a magazine titled Foothills Digest out of Hickory, North Carolina. But I want to keep going. I want to write in different capacities.
So looking down the road, then you see yourself writing and publishing more?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm probably a third of the way through on my next book. Very similar, a collection of short stories once again. But I'm also interested in writing a few novels and a book of poetry called The Poet's Tree. And I'm about between a third and a half away through that one.
So with Shorts and Teas, once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, Eric, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
Well, this has been a long journey. This is 20 years in the making. Trusting the process. I was a little apprehensive on my end as not knowing, as a new author, not knowing exactly how the process would go, and then finding the right publisher with Christian Faith. They've been phenomenal in the process. They've walked it through with me each step of the way, and they've made it a lot clearer. So the next book that I write, Lord willing, I'll have a much clearer idea of what's expected. I would say the process of publishing and making the decisions. I remember that was rather daunting earlier on when I was was I going to publish my own books entirely, or do I allow an agency to publish the books? That was a difficult decision.
The name of the book is Shorts and Teas. It's written by Eric Welborne and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Eric, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Rise of the Sprite is the new book by Hannah P. Cogar, and it's a gripping tale that centers around a young girl who discovers a shocking truth about her identity. The author, Hannah, is right here with me now. We get to talk all about it. Hannah, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Hannah, can you tell me all about Rise of the Sprite?
Yeah, Rise of the Sprite is a fairy tale novel that has a little bit of everything in it so I can keep my readers interested. It has suspense, romance, mystery. It has where they go on adventures. It has a lot of suspenseful moments right in the very beginning so that everybody can get an immediate taste of what the book's going to be about before it goes into describing who she is and how her life is. It was a book that honestly was just kind of a rough draft in my head and started like a little make-believe world I would go to in my mind, and then I just decided to write it all out on paper.
Hannah, what kinds of readers do you think would be really into this?
I honestly feel like my book should be for middle schoolers and up, maybe a little older, because it does have some inappropriate scenes in it. But I definitely want to attract a wide age range, anywhere from young adult to older.
Hannah, what does your writing background look like? Are you experienced in this kind of thing?
I have never published a book before, but I have done competitions in my school, and I have got some pretty high scores. Whenever I was in a lower grade, I was beating a lot of the kids in higher grades, so I've had people along the way tell me that I should stay inspired and keep trying to become a writer, because it has always been my dream since I was young.
So once you started on Rise of the Sprite, was this a long thing for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Oh, yeah. I actually started on Rise of the Sprite in maybe 2016 or 2017. It was somewhere along where I was in high school. And I worked on 3 books, but only Rise of the Sprite has been published.
So you hooked up with your publisher, Newman Springs. What would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process?
Learning how to get it published, learning about all the paperwork I had to go through, and all the rereading through my story might have been the most challenging part, because I'm so used to how my story is. I did miss a couple errors, because I know how I see it. So whenever I'm reading over it for correcting, I miss some things.
So then it was finally done. You got your first copy in, and you were holding Rise of the Sprite in your hands for the first time, Hannah. What was that moment like for you?
I honestly wanted to cry, because I never thought I would make it this far, because I've always had people tell me that I would never amount to much. So when I actually had the book in my hand, it was kind of like I felt like I was dreaming and I didn't want to wake up.
Now you're finally a published author. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I feel like the people who did have faith in me are honestly going to be the most proud of me in this moment. And I am definitely very happy, because the ones who had faith in me will be able to see me grow.
So I'm noticing this is the first book of the Rise of the Sprite series. So do you have a certain number planned out?
I do, actually. I have 2 and 3 in a rough draft form, but I also plan on doing an alternate series in the future where you can look at a different perspective from the other characters you'll meet along the way. And I might even do an alternate series where she chooses a different path, but that one is not decided yet.
This book is titled Rise of the Sprite. It's written by Hannah P. Cogar and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Hannah, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sitting down with me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Carole Rounds. Carole, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for talking to me.
It's really great to talk with you today, Carole, and you have a new book out titled Baby Hoo-Hoo, a true story of a great American horned owlet. Can you tell me all about it?
Well, it was a true story that we were sitting in our yard all summer long watching from the point this little baby owl hatched until it flew away with its parents, and the good parenting that mother and father had with this baby.
Carole, what kinds of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
Well, I think it'd be like babies, 6 months. I just did a couple of classes in kindergarten and 2 first graders, 2 classes, and read my book to them, and they're pretty intelligent kids now, so maybe even kindergarten below.
So what does your writing background look like, Carole? Have you ever done anything like this before?
Heavens, no. I'm 80 years old, and this was just one of the things off my bucket list.
So being your first one, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing part, the publishing and everything?
It was, mainly because I didn't know what I was getting into.
And so once you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs, Carole, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing end of things for you?
To get my computer to work.
Yeah, it helps when that works.
Oh, yeah, it was hard. And so they had to do a lot of this stuff manually. I'd call them and tell them. That was mainly the biggest thing.
And an important part in books like this is the illustrations. So was that a smooth process?
Oh, yes, it was really good. Once they got my idea of how I wanted it done, it was perfect. It was great.
So now the book's out there. Carole, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
Just my accomplishment, I guess, and then to see the kids that I read to at the school, were quite fascinated, asked a lot of questions.
There's nothing like seeing that finished product, when it's finally a real thing. So once you were holding your book in your hands for the first time, Carole, what was that moment like for you?
Well, I was kind of overwhelmed, I guess is the word, because I just thought, my goodness sakes, I hope people like it.
Well, we have a lot of authors listening to us right now, and they're just starting out. They're just putting their ideas out there right now. So do you have maybe some advice that you could offer to them?
Start it earlier in life instead of waiting until you're 80 years old. Otherwise, I encouraged the kids in the classes yesterday to start thinking about writing books, do it early. And if you can't print it, then draw pictures so it reminds you later on of what you'd like to write about.
Yeah, that's really important. So was the writing ever challenging for you, like writer's block, things like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have too many things going on. I have a lot of activities, so I had to just squeeze it in.
And so when you're sitting down, you're writing, you're trying to think of something, but the words aren't there. Do you have a strategy maybe to get those ideas flowing?
Well, I would, mainly because we watched it. My husband and I would sit out on the porch and we watched this little owl communicate with us basically from the time he was out of the egg, in the tree off the patio until he fell. Then the parents got involved from that point. I don't think I really had writer's block on what to say because that's what happened. It was true.
And I've talked with a lot of authors here over the years, and I've noticed how many of them also tend to love to read. Carole, would you call yourself a big reader?
No, I'm not.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But when you do read, what kinds of things do you tend to pick up?
The paper. Oh, I got a couple of little books that I've read, that are funny, real life.
Oh, what a wonderful book. Again, this is titled Baby Hoo-Hoo, a true story of a great American horned owlet. It's written by Carole Rounds, and it's published by Newman Springs Publishing. Find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Carole, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's been great talking with you tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Joining me now, right here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, is author D. Stephen Goodrich. Stephen, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Stephen, you have a new book out titled Life Revived, a visual and spiritual adventure of encouragement. Can you tell me what you've written about here?
Well, what it's about is exactly that subtitle there. The book is a visual and spiritual adventure of encouragement. So what I did is take 120 photographs. These are landscape nature photographs that I've taken myself. I'm a professional photographer. And to those photographs, I've written a story about that particular photograph. And in that story is a little bit about the scene, the location itself, my draw on life experience in my lifetime that ties into that, and then even add a Bible passage that is very much applicable to it. It's fascinating in that when I take the photograph, when I'm at the scene, the location, I'm not really thinking about what I'm going to write about. I take the photograph because of its aesthetic beauty, and it's when I get back to the studio and I look at the photograph and I'm processing it, it begins to communicate in different ways, and different people will see different things in those photographs. And so I just kind of go with that and see where it leads.
What kinds of readers, Stephen, do you think would be really into this?
I would say just about everybody, because it's really a book of encouragement. I'm an encouraging personality. I like lifting people up. And Lord knows, we go through challenging times. And everybody could use some uplifting encouragement in their life, or maybe a different insight to help them through a struggle. So it's pretty much applicable to everybody.
Stephen, when it comes to writing and publishing and everything, do you have experience in this, or is this your first time at it?
No, this is my first publication. It was quite an adventure. I'm actually an industrial designer by education and my first professional experience. And what an architect is to a building, an industrial designer is to an automobile or a computer or a piece of furniture. Somebody has to design it and determine, what that might look like and work with the people who are going to manufacture and produce it. Writing this book was very much the same experience. I've never done creative writing before, so this was really a new adventure for me as well. And as I got into it, things just really started to flow. And getting the book actually produced, what was so fulfilling about it was actually having the book in my hands. When you're done with the design process, you have something tangible that you can touch and feel, or if it's an automobile, you're driving the automobile. If it's a comfortable chair or recliner, you're sitting in that recliner. So the book was just another variation of that.
So what made you decide to take this creative leap and write the book?
Well, it actually started back in 2020 during the pandemic. So, everyone was confined to home. Our church pastor back in Texas, excellent musician. He plays a Texas blues type genre of music. And he was sitting in his office, had his acoustic guitar, and he wrote a song called Everything's Gonna Be All Right. And he put it out on Facebook for his congregation. And I saw that and listened to it and said to myself, there's got to be something that I can do to encourage people. And the idea of taking the photographs and posting them each day or every other day with a few words of encouragement occurred to me. And so I just went with that. One thing led to another. After several weeks, a couple months, a good friend of mine, Walter, was reading these and saying, Stephen, this is really good stuff. You need to write a book. And I said to myself, oh, Walter, I'm not an author, a book writer. He said, no, I'm serious. I think there's something to this. And so I just went with it. And over a period of almost 4 years, I actually ended up writing about 200 of these short stories to go with different photographs that I've taken over the last decade.
What a beautiful book. Again, it's titled Life Revived, a visual and spiritual adventure of encouragement. It's written by D. Stephen Goodrich, and it's published by Covenant Books. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop. Stephen, thank you so much again for coming on the show and telling me all about this wonderful book. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for hosting.
I'm looking at the new book written by David R. High, and it's a captivating novel that blends biblical truth, imagination, and hope for eternity. It's titled Mata, When Prophecy Becomes History. The author, David, is right here with me now at the show. We get to talk all about the book. David, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
David, can you tell me all about Mata and what readers can expect here?
Well, as a pastor for 50 years, I was often asked, what will heaven be like? And found that most people really had no clue and were relying on movies and fables and different things. So I began over the years developing information, sharing information, preaching messages, and so on. And it became such a point of interest for people, I decided to write the book.
David, what kinds of readers do you think this would most connect with?
Well, any believer, because I found that the skill level or knowledge level of almost every Christian I talk to is really kind of uninformed. I asked a friend the other day, are you planning on going to heaven when you die? And she said, of course. I said, well, when you get there, what are you going to do? And she looked at me with this very puzzled look on her face and said, ride horses, I guess. And I said, wait a minute. You mean Jesus knew you before the world was, has your name in his book, has invited you by the blood of Jesus to come and live with him forever so you can ride horses? People just don't know. So what I've done is through a family's adventure through about 2,000 years of history. This is the first of 3 books. Take people on a journey of what life, real life, everyday life will be like in eternity.
So what was that inspiration? What was that spark that made you say, hey, I got to write this?
Well, 2 things. One is I've been privileged to go to heaven twice myself. And then as I share what I experienced when I went, to see the twinkle come into people's eyes, see them start to get interested in it, have them tell me months later how it changed something in them that gave them more hope and understanding than before. That connection that occurs when truth hits somebody.
What does your writing background look like, David? Do you have experience doing this kind of thing?
Well, this is my 4th book. The first one was about 100,000 copies we printed. The second one, the same, about 100,000 copies. The third one didn't catch on quite as well as the first 2. So this is the 4th, and I've already finished the second in this series. It's the prequel to Mata. By the way, I pronounce it Meta. It's a Hebrew word, and it means having unusual skill or understanding. So I'm hopeful that it will put that seed in other people to want to have that spiritual understanding.
Thank you for correcting my pronunciation of Meta. So once you started writing Meta, was this a long journey overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Oh, no, it only took 20 years. From when I had those experiences as a young man to the time that I actually finished the book was at least 20 years.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, David, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
I think the back and forth editing, we had some differences of opinion about certain things, nothing critical or major theologically or doctrinally. It was just the way I was approaching the book. But we worked that out, and then it went pretty smoothly.
Well, we have a lot of listeners who are writers just starting out. David, do you have maybe some advice that you could toss out there for them?
When we first started in the writing, what I would do is teach the material, listen for feedback on the material, see if I could find better ways of saying it before I ever even began to pick a pen up to start writing the book. Because the first one I wrote years ago, we didn't even have a computer. It was all handwritten. And it takes effort and energy. But I can tell you that after the first one did 100,000 copies, it was in 17 languages. Pretty rewarding stuff when you find people. The first time I heard about it being somewhere else, I got a copy of the first book from someone in Poland who, without permission, had translated it, printed it, and sent me a copy. You never know.
Well, it sounds like this book is definitely going to bless a lot of readers. Again, it's titled Meta, When Prophecy Becomes History. It's written by David R. High and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop. David, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.